Okay, I'm back. I'm back live again, it says. We'll see. I'll try to adjust it. Got some new specs. Yay! Well, I can see the screen better, so that's good. Let me get off this thing. I hope I didn't leave everybody hanging with the other video. It went offline on me, so I don't know. I had a few people that was watching live. I'm not real popular yet, so I don't have a ton of people. But I did have a few. Um, but let me kind of review where I was at. I was talking about how I got started in the trucking business. My wife and I got married just right out of high school. I was in my first year of college. Actually, I guess I was in my second year of college. I just started when we got married. But I was lonely. She was just out of high school in her first year of college when we got married. She went the first semester. Actually, she went a summer semester and a first semester at NC State. And I was lonely as all get out, so I had to. I wanted to get married. I thought that was the thing to do, so I did. So we got married young and dumb, as the old saying goes. And you know, I thought that was. I thought I was an adult. I guess legally I was, but I was pretty inexperienced and and not not very experienced in anything, whether it was whether it was trucking or life or anything. I was really wet behind the ears, like so many people are when they get started. You're 19 years old, think you got the bull by the horns. You can do anything, but little did I know that I had a rude awakening of a lot of things. But getting back to the trucking business, uh, I I enjoyed it because, of course, yeah, I mean it was a great adventure for young boys. I mean, there I was, 18, 19, well 17 really when I first started, 17, 18, 19 years old. I thought that I could do anything. I got real good at switching on the yard, and I, like I said, I wanted to do more. I wanted to be able to. I wanted to be able to drive on the road and everything. So when I got my opportunity to drive local, what I would do, I was basically a regular on the yard. Then I would work my hours on the yard, and whether I was on second shift or third shift or whatever shift I was on, after I clocked out. Back then, they would let you actually just clock out and get on because I had no hours on logging or anything. That they didn't care that I'd already worked 8 hours, an 8 hour shift. They'd let me clock in on another card and go for it again. I could work another 8 hours as far as they was concerned. Wasn't too bad when you're young and you can do things like that. You can work a 16-hour day, but it's tough on the older guys. And in today's terms, legally, they couldn't do that. I mean, this is the old days. We're running paper logs. We're not uh, doing everything that we have to with e-logs and everything like we do today. Different, different time, different way of looking at things. And they needed bodies like everybody else, just like they do now. You need somebody that's willing to work. And I was willing to work. I was able to make me some good money. Like I said, hey, $3.29 an hour, who could beat it? Because I remember about the time I got the chauffeur's license, I think we'd gotten up to about $4 an hour. So when I was first started actually driving for a living, I was making $4 an hour. Not many people would say, "Oh gosh, I can $4 an hour. How can you survive?" Well, it was good money in At that time, it was probably 1970 when I was doing that. And, you know, in those terms, I could work an 8-hour shift, $4 an hour. You're making, 40-hour week. You're getting about $160 a week. Well, $160 in 1960 was a lot of money. Uh, then, if you were able to double up on it a little bit, say if you could pull another 30 hours driving, heck, I could pull down $250, $300 a week sometimes. That was really good money in 1970. So I did that as much as I could. I tried my best to get as much work in as I could, get as much experience in as I could, which I was able to do. Uh, I was I was able to get what I want to say is a real good uh, base of learning experiences between working on the yard, and working as a local driver. Uh, I was doing mainly terminal to terminal. I wasn't doing as much unloading of the freight. I used to like to do the nighttime runs, and especially on the weekends or my days off, I would do as much of that as I could. I mean, it was a thrill back then. I mean, oh man, when they called me and said, "Hey, can you run some extra runs?" Oh man, that was like a kid in a candy store. Loved it. Thought there was nothing like it. But you know, later on, like I am now, I dread getting in a truck now. I mean, at my age, like I said, I'll be 67 in a couple of months, and I enjoy the trucking business, but I don't enjoy driving. Uh, driving at this point in my life is more of a drudgery because uh, I don't want to be out there in the traffic and everything else. And I've had my time behind the wheel. I've got several million miles safe driving, and I think I've earned the respect of the other drivers, and I've earned the respect of what it takes to do this and maintain this as a driver and a contractor. And I don't want to do it anymore. Not in that avenue. Now I like owning my trucking business, but I don't want to actually be the driver. Now occasionally, I get a little bug, and I'll want to jump in a new vehicle or a different vehicle and try it out and see what it's all about. And yeah, I like going through the gears and hearing a nice motor and just different things like that. I think you're always going to have that in the back of your mind, and you're always going to go, man, this is pretty cool here. But uh, all in all, I like managing and being the business owner as opposed to trying to drive a truck. And physically, I just don't. I don't do as good anymore in a truck. I mean, it wears me out a lot more than it used to. Okay, but getting back to the trucking business, I continued on with uh, driving part-time and also being a yard switcher until about 1980. And I took a 180-degree turn away from the trucking business for a few years. I mean, I went entirely away from it. I was into thinking I could do anything, and I attempted a few things. I was pretty good at graphics. I was pretty good at uh, writing, and had a few other things. And I actually started a newspaper in our hometown. I started that and ran that for a while, and wasn't satisfied with that, so I bought the local radio station in town. I don't know how I did it at my age. I about 28, 29 years old at the time, almost 30, and I bought the local radio station along with having a newspaper. Well, about the dumbest thing I'd ever done in my life, but I did it. Did it for a couple of years until it about busted me straight. I mean, I had quit my job at Carolina Freight, which was dumb in some eyes, and I had started this business as a newspaper owner and a radio station owner. And it's sort of ironic. I guess I could. I'm down here at my new location from my Napa store, but it's sort of ironic. But I'm right here across the road from where the location of the radio station is right now. Let me see. I'll turn it around. Let me see if I can turn this around and see if we can get a viewpoint of the radio station. A good friend of mine owns it right now. Okay, let me turn it. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's raining pretty hard down here. I don't think you can. But anyway, right across the street down there is the radio station. But getting back to the trucking business, I continue on, like I said, until about 1980. Ventured off and tried to do something on my own with this radio station and newspaper. Worked my keister off for a couple years until I realized I was going broke quick. I mean, going really broke really quick. So I quit that and actually went to work at this Ford dealership that I'm sitting at right now. I'm down here looking the property over here. I just bought this. We'll get into that later, but I used to work at this car dealership. Let me see if I can turn myself around here so you can get an idea. We're trying to do some remodeling down here, but I used to work at this when it was a car dealership. Now I'm gonna turn the picture around. Let's see if through this rainy day that we can actually see anything. You can see a little bit, but okay. Let me see if I can stabilize that a little bit. We got the car off. There, the stabilize a little bit. Anyway, there's the buildings, as you can see a little bit of it. That's the Ford dealership. Of course, they've got a lot of stuff in the front that we're going to have to remove and everything. They kind of got it blocked off there so you can't see it the way it's going to be. But getting back to my story, I went to work here at this Ford dealership. It was owned by my sister-in-law's grandfather, and they gave me a job as a salesman. So I worked here as a salesman, and then switched me over and from a salesman to a parts manager when their parts manager up and quit. So I kind of did both of those, and after I did that for a few years, I actually switched and went to another. I got a better offer at another Ford dealership, went to it, worked it for a little bit, and then got out of it and went to a third Ford dealership, which was a larger one. And the larger one, I could make a good bit more money. So I did that, and I did that from probably 1981 to about 1980. Let me get my years right, to about 1984 probably, and worked 2 or 3 years in the car business. Not my cup of tea, I can tell you that. Not my cup of tea. I did as well as most salesmen do. I mean, I won I was one of the top salesmen. Won some trips. We won a trip. My wife and I did to Mexico with a lot of the other salesmen. So we went to Cancun one year. Enjoyed that. Enjoyed the experience, but not I wasn't really cut out to be a car salesman per se. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't like that much. But I did like the automotive business, probably better over here at Marvin Beam Ford, better than anywhere else. I was given a lot of latitude to do a lot of things and learn a lot of things over here. Very smart man. But that being said, I didn't really want to be a car salesman, so to speak. Not not to sit around and tell cock and bull stories all day long and those sort of things. So I ventured back into the trucking business. Well, I did that. I ran some line haul for a trucking firm, and uh, I ran, California, Boston, different places up the East Coast, up the West, out the West Coast. Did that for a short while for this trucking company until I found out I was really getting screwed on the pay on this company. Now here I had gone from union wages to what I didn't realize was they kind of threw me in the truck. I went out there and worked for a few weeks with them and realized I wasn't making jack with them. I mean, I was driving the truck. I was going, seeing the United States and everything, but just wasn't making jack with them. So I left that and went into another business with another company as actually a sort of an IT guy because I was good with computers. I was good with a lot of other things that I picked up on early when computers were just beginning to start. Uh, so I'd kind of gotten pretty good with that. My son and I were doing that as a hobby way back then. And so using my expertise with that, uh, I did that for a few years, and I saw where Roadway Package System, this was in the mid '80s, was starting up uh, a package company. I mean, they Roadway was going to do a package van to compete with FedEx. Well, I inquired about it and everything, and I checked into it, and sure enough, I was able to be a contractor with RPS. So I signed on with them and actually ran a package van for about 6 months until their line haul division was expanding, and they gave me an opportunity to run since I was a former driver and switcher and everything else. They gave me an opportunity to uh, run line haul for them. So that's what I did. I bought my first tractor trailer truck in 1987 and uh, ran a tractor trailer truck with them. And it was an old cab over 81, the 81 model cab over International, and rough as a cob. I mean, it was a rough riding truck, but it did the job. So that's where I got my start as a owner operator in 1987. Uh, I I, uh, I bought like I said, my first tractor trailer truck, drove it myself, and started that with RPS. Well, I did that for about uh, 6 months to a year as just an owner operator driver. I guess it was less than a year, and they uh, were growing at such a pace that they said we need another truck on that route. I said, cool, I'll buy another one. I've got a friend that I can put on. So I got a hold of one of my good friends that used to work with me in Carolina Freight that had also worked on the yard, and we got him checked out and everything with RPS, and uh, we uh, we ran the loads at night together. We were running out of Hickory, North Carolina, down to Greensboro. We would run 2 trips apiece each night. So that's what I started doing. Jerry would run two, and I would run two, or whatever we had. And then sometimes they would run us to different locations. Other than that, run us to Roanoke, or run us to Greenville South, or run us to Raleigh, or whatever we had to do at that time. We were running fairly local. I liked that. I didn't want to venture too far away and be gone from the family too long. So I did that, and uh, I kept sticking with it, and uh, Then they needed 3 trucks. So but the third one, they when they wanted that, they wanted me to domicile it in Greensboro. So I had two in Hickory and one in Greensboro. So I had to hire me another driver that was in Greensboro, and I managed it and my other 2 trucks out of Hickory, and did that. And that was as far as RPS would let me go. They wouldn't let you get more than 3 trucks. Any one contractor couldn't get more than 3 trucks at that time. So I had my maximum. I had 3 trucks. I had two regular runs out of Hickory and one out of Greensboro. So I did that, uh, continued on with that, and then they gave with the Hickory run. I was actually required to do more local P&D with it, you might say. And it got to the point where that local P&D with them was not very good. It wasn't. It wasn't as productive, or in my mind, it didn't make as much money. So I was able to get 2 more runs in Greensboro, and uh, then we couldn't sell our runs. But then I just basically gave up my runs out of Hickory. So I put all my trucks in Greensboro because I'd heard in the inkling that they were going to build a new hub in Charlotte eventually. Well, I'm still young, so I'm thinking eventually is fine with me. I was in at this time, let's see, I was about, I started with them, I was 36, I think, when I started with them. So I was about, um, let me get my bearings straight here, I think 35 or 36. Let's see, 87. So what am I? Yeah, somewhere in that, somewhere in that neighborhood. Anyway, uh, I decided that I would put all my eggs in one basket and move everything down to Greensboro, and I would just commute back and forth, which I did. I did that for a couple of years, and by doing that, I established myself as probably one of the lead guys that was going to move to Charlotte, because I lived down here in this Charlotte area. So of course they did. They built a new terminal in the Charlotte area, which they're still running today, and I was able to be one of the top guys seniority wise because I'd got in on the ground floor to move to the Charlotte hub. So I'd always kind of been cognizant of my seniority and everything else, and in the future it would it'd really pay off for me to have all that. So I continued doing that, and then, like I said, they opened up the terminal in Charlotte, and boom, I was able to get 3 bid runs in Charlotte. And there again, that was the max. That's all they'd let us have. And I bought me some better equipment, and we were able to. I actually bought me a couple of new day cab Max, and ran those for a couple of years, and realized they weren't the most comfortable. So I got some sleeper Max. Uh, I bought a couple of a good uh, when new ones, traded those in, got me some new sleeper Max, and I ran those for several years. Did real well with them. This is back before EGR engines and all the other crap that we have to deal with now, and I did real good with it. I did real good, and it got to the point where I could, as better runs came up, I was able to bid on them because of my seniority and get and obtain better runs. So that's what I did. I got my core base of good runs started, and then uh, I wanted to say about '97, about 10 years after I'd gotten into line haul, FedEx bought out RPS, and that's when it really took off. FedEx was pretty proactive. They initially started saying, well, now we'll let you go up to 5 trucks. So most of us contractors moved on up to 5 trucks. Well, now we still couldn't buy anybody out. We still, it's your trucks, whatever you got, ma'am, that's it. So, I quickly got up to 5 trucks as quick as I could. I was doing good with it. Didn't own a shop at that time, but saw that the need was coming, and then you know uh, I guess I probably ought to stop at this point because I'm getting really long. I'll make a part three. I've done a part one and part two, and now I'll make a part three, and maybe somebody will tune into part three. But I'll stop at this point because it looks like about 25 minutes of blabbing right now, and that's enough. I'll stop, do a part three later, and if you're interested, listen to it. If you're not, don't. Like they say, if you want to make a comment or whatever, make a comment. If you like it, hit the like button, and hopefully tell though. Talk to you later.